Welcome everybody. Got here a couple minutes early just to make sure everything's sounding okay and looking all right. And definitely looking forward to getting into this tune with everybody today. And I'll play through the tune in just a couple of minutes once it's officially start time. And meantime, if you can hear and you can see, let me know. And there it is. So, of course, we'll be, if you're watching this on replay, this is, I'm going to there'll be a replay for today's live stream, and you can go and get the PDF on the intro and PDF page, which I posted a link to in the forum. And it's great to be back and to see everybody here. Excuse me. I've got this snarkly throat, which I'm trying to make it go away so I can be quiet while we're shooting. Nice to see you all. Hey, John Farragher and Top Cat and Jim, Tony, Gary, Brian, Guido, Randy. All right. Well, here we go. I think it's about go time. So let me play through the tune a little bit, just the vamp and a bit of the fundamental embellished, maybe a little improvising, and then we'll get into some horizontal three-step and some vamp breakdown and all of that. Okay, so that's the tune, more or less. And and so now, if you haven't gotten a chance to go download the PDF for this month, and I'm going to pull that up on the screen as well. And we'll get rolling. Let me just move the comments over here. And let's see. Okay, here we go. Let's make this full screen. And let's go like so. Come on, you. There we go. Okay. Let me get the comments back up for a second here. A lot of moving parts. Okay. So, the fundamental, the embellished. Let's talk about the vamp just for a minute, and then I'll get into the horizontal three-step on the fundamental. So the vamp, this is a little different from some of the vamps we've had before, which were usually more chord-based. But the tune itself, like I was playing during that outro, has kind of a vamp quality, right? Like you could just keep those chords going, and that would actually make a great intro, maybe with some fills. So right. But this one is more of the idea of like if you had, it's imagining the idea of like that sound of like the bass and then maybe like the left hand of the piano or bass and guitar playing in octaves, right? And kind of getting that kind of little ensemble sound out of just one guitar, right? So you can look at this a couple of different ways, but basically to play octaves and drop D, everything's kind of easy to visualize. Here's just a D blues scale going up the 6th and the 4th string, and you just got the root, the flat third, the 4th, the flat 5, and the 5. But when you cross over to the next strings, then you've got to play octaves sort of the normal way, 2 frets apart and 2 strings apart. So, so that's what's going on. And if we just kind of check out the tab here, there's some different rhythmic things going on to kind of make it not sound like the exact same thing played 4 times in a row. So you've got the bass and then hammer on while you pick, or the hammer on the 4th string while you pick the open string on the, while you pick the 6th string. So you're hammering on and pulling off here, and at the same time you're picking and pulling off. So the second phrase, there's a pause, and you're actually hammering on and pulling off at the same time on the 6th and the 4th string. And then this gets held, and you can do a little vibrato on that if you want to. Now we're back to basically a variation on the opening phrase. Now, so we're kind of repeating, playing a little tag. Right, so a little bit of a repeat of that phrase. And then landing here, which is really kind of representing the 5 chord. So when you get to the end of that second phrase, or the second line, could play a big fat E, A chord, and even make it into, you know, let's call it a dominant 7 flat 13 chord with the flat 7, the 3rd, and the flat 13, like that. So that's an alternative to just hitting the octave. But that leaves you plenty of time. You've got these 2 beats of rest to get into the tune. So you would play this one whole time through, all 8 bars. And play it right. Oh, I did. So that's the idea behind the vamp. When we get to the arranging week, we'll have a couple of other ones to choose from, but that's a good one to get started with. And because you start with just the open bass string, when you're coming out of the tune, you could go in bar 11 instead of going into the vamp or going into the, the last part of the tune. You could go right into the vamp. So and so on. Now I did in the video version that's posted on the main lesson page, I think I played the vamp kind of fast. Like, if you took the whole tune that tempo, it would totally lose the sort of after hours, late night feel. So just take that tempo with a grain of salt. So that's the vamp, and then let's look at the horizontal 3-step. So if you're new around here or you need a refresher, the horizontal 3-step is the idea that, and wait, I'm kind of concerned. Oh, there it is. You can see everything. Okay. It's the idea that when you're playing fingerstyle guitar, it's really easy to get caught up in sort of just moving from vertical moment to vertical moment in the tab, just learning a bunch of grips, right? My thumb is doing this while my fingers do this, and then I got to grab this, and then I got to grab this. Really, the point of fingerstyle guitar is to take this bass line, which is unfolding over time. It's a horizontal gesture, right? The bass line travels through time. It's a horizontal idea. The melody, too, also takes place. It's horizontal. It has a flow to it like this. And so we want to break those two things down and learn them. Learn the bass as one thing that's got its own direction and point, and the melody as its own horizontal thing. And then, so that's step 1 and step 2. Isolate the bass and then isolate the melody as horizontal events. And then in step 3, put it all back together. And now when you emphasize how the thumb and the fingers line up, you're doing it from a musical point of view to say, oh, my thumb and fingers need to do these things to create these two simultaneous horizontal things. So it's really no more than that. And so first thing we're going to do is look at just the bass. So I've taken the fundamental arrangement and stripped out the melody. And so this is where you can see what the chords are, what the pulse is. We're playing with a steady bass, but the thumb is alternating every 2 beats from string to string or from bass note to bass note. So right here at the beginning, we've got 4 bars of D to A minor. And I should point out also, it's a 12-bar blues, and I usually try to write these out with 4 bars per line, so it's easy to see the 3 lines of the blues, to break up the blues into bars 1 through 4, 5 through 8, and 9 through 12. But this is a very dense arrangement. Oh, there's a little typo. It's a very dense arrangement. There's another one. I'll clean those up. So I split everything up I made everything into 3-bar lines. So really the first line goes from 1, 2, 3, 4 to here. Then we start with the 4 chord here, and we're back to the 1 chord here, and the turnaround starts here, the beginning of the 3rd line, starting on the 5 chord, and then working our way back around. So we have this for the first 4 bars. We're alternating between a D and an A, which is the root and the 5th of the D chord. So we have 4 bars of this. And then we get to the 4 chord, and now we're going to alternate between G, which with the drop D tuning, this note at the 5th fret is now a G note, and then down to the 5th of G, which is the D note. And then back to, I'm at the beginning of the 3rd line now, D and A. And now we have more of a walking bass kind of thing for the next two bars. On the A, we're going to climb up. So we're basically moving from the root of A to the second to the flat third, and we land on the third, which is another strong chord tone of the A. And then on the G, we're going to walk down and then over to A. So that creates the effect of a G with the seventh or the F in the bass, the sound of an E minor chord, or an E minor 7. Let's see, why am I calling it that? Let's see, what's the melody doing there? So, well, E minor to A, it's really, we're not really actually spelling out those chords, but it's the sound of a 2 to a 5 to a 1. Don't worry about it if that doesn't really make any sense, but really you can just think it's a cool bass sound, and it's effectively spelling out the sound of the 4 chord with its 7th in the bass as opposed to up here, the root of an E minor chord which takes you to an A chord, that's the 5, which takes you back to the 1, and you've got this business again. So you want to first isolate the bass and make sure you play all those bass notes with your thumb, and as you reach for the notes you need to fret, be thinking about what your fingers are going to be busy doing later, so that when you're on the G chord, you want to use your ring finger, because that's the finger you're going to have to use when you're putting the whole tune together. So just be mindful of where the fingers need to be, and right. So here, index finger, right. So when you're in these two bars here, you want to use the ring finger for the G, but when you're down here, you want to use your index finger for the G, because that's what you need to do to play the melody. Back to the ring finger for this F note, middle finger. So just, you might even want to pencil in, what the left hand fingering, what the fretting fingering needs to be on those walking bass lines, just so you know that you're in the right place. So that's the first thing you do. You play through the whole bass, just keeping steady quarter notes, and making sure you understand what the bass line is, and that you can sort of play it as its own independent thing. Next, hey, wait a second, went the wrong way. Sorry. Next, we'd isolate the melody. So now it's the opposite. We want to strip out the bass. And just a reminder, these notes in parentheses just mean that you don't pick them again. You're going to still hear these notes. They're held over. You still hear them sustaining, but you don't have to pick them again. That's why they're in parentheses, to show that they're there, but not actually getting played again. So here, you want to make sure you play all these notes with your fingers on the picking hand. Right? You don't want to get your thumb involved, because that's going to be busy playing the bass. So, and you can sort of assign a default on these first 4 bars of your index finger on the 4th string, middle finger on the 3rd string, and ring finger on the high string. And when you move this shape at the 4th and the 3rd fret down to this shape at the 2nd and 1st fret, you might want to, it seems more intuitive if you were just playing those chords out of nowhere, to play them with middle and index. But because you've got to play that lick to get there, and that means using your index finger of your fretting hand on 2nd fret of the 3rd string, you might want to just keep this shape, slide it down, like that. And then when you get to here and you're starting to play into the G chord, it's the same idea. You've got a lick, and then you're spreading out to play this interval with the 4th fret on the 3rd string and the 3rd fret on top. That's the 3rd and the root of G. back to D. And the licks on D and the licks on G are exactly the same as far as here we're playing the root, the flat third to third, and the fifth, and then landing on the third and the root. And then sliding back to the second and the flat seven, which makes it sound like a ninth chord. Since we're putting the A in the bass underneath it, it ends up sounding like an A minor, so that's how I wrote it out. But the idea is that it's the combination of just thinking of this as rocking to the root and the fifth, from the root to the fifth of the D chord, and sliding down to the D9. When you put it over an A, it sounds like an A minor, so I just try to write out the chord names according to what it actually looks like on the guitar at the moment. So we do that a couple times. Again, think about it as what's the melody, what's the melodic flow. Then we get to the G chord and we do the same thing, only from G. Right? It's the same thing in terms of intervals. Root, flat 3, 3, fifth, and then third and root, and then ninth and flat 7. So if you kept that over a G, which is almost impossible to do, you'd have that sound. But we've got the D in the bass, so it sounds kind of like D minor. So and again, I'm picking here with index and ring. When I go up to the G, I've now moved the whole operation up. It's index, middle, and ring on the third, second, and first frets. So just being able to play through those as licks will really help you put this together. If you can just sit there and make these single note and double stop moves sound really groovy. Right, you can sit and tap your foot and make those licks sound great. When you go to put them together with the bass, you'll have done most of the work. It'll just be a coordination issue at that point. It won't be a matter of trying to learn what's supposed to be happening musically. So then we get to the busy part here, right? And this is just a kind of rhythmically sneaky move on the A chord. We're playing the flat 7, and we've got this triplet feel, so it's a double stop. And if that double stop is hanging you up, you can leave out the open third string and just play. But what's happening here is we're having this this lick that's spelling out notes of the A9 chord. So here's the sixth and fifth and third and root, right? Just A chord shapes. And the rhythm is this sort of tricky blues rhythm of a triplet. So 1 and 3 and 4 and. So you can sit and count it out, which we'll do when we get to the putting everything together. But if you can just get the notes first and just see them as kind of just fooling around with the shape of an A chord. Just choosing notes in and around the A triad. And then this last note here is just kind of jumping you, it's a jumping off point to get you into the G7 lick. And that sounds really tricky. We're up here because you have to be up here for the bass note, so that's why we're playing it here and not here. But this is just a blues lick. Right, we're just playing D blues moves over the G and the G, the E minor, and the A. So here's the flat third, root, and flat 7, and then the fifth, flat 5, and then flat 3 to root to fifth, and then we're back. So if you can think of it as a lick, hopefully help you remember what's going on. So we have and then we're back into. So if you look at it that way, this is all the same thing over and over again. So ba-da-da, ba-ba-da, right? So that happens once, and then it happens again, and then it happens again over here, and then it happens again over here. So that's a lot of the tune just taken up with these two bars. Then we just have to be able to play over the G, and then we have to be able to play over this turnaround. So there's really only 6 bars that you have to learn, because the rest of it is repeating. Out of those 12 bars, there's a lot of repetition. So there's just really these 3 2-bar sections you have to get down. This, this, and this. That's the whole melody. So that's what you learn to do next. And I'll play through the whole thing. So here's the whole melody. That's step 2. And then putting it together. Now what I've done here, which I do each time, is I have written out the count underneath, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and so you can see how everything falls. And then I've highlighted any place where there's a pinch, any place where the thumb and a finger or fingers are playing at the same time. Because all the numbers, the 1, 2, 3, 4, those are all bass notes. The bass is incredibly regular. If you go back and remember, the bass is just playing quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, and the ands fall in between. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So by using the thumb as the count, we can sort of have something to measure the fingers against. So the thumb is providing the steady foundation, and the fingers are either playing with the thumb, which means they're pinching, which means you can count it on the downbeat, on a strong beat, like a number, or they're playing in between, which means they're kind of syncopated, they're playing on the ands. And occasionally we have a triplet feel, like we do, here's one. And instead of counting 4 and, like you would for 2 8th notes, you count 4 and which is like a triplet count. Da, 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 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So those happen once in a while, those pickup phrases. Those are 4 and 1 and 4 and 2 and, da, 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 da. It's that rhythm. So now we've done our bass, we've done our melody, we can go through and look at how things line up. Now at the beginning of this first measure here, this first full measure, you have a bass note, and a melody note, and then a pinch, thumb and ring finger, and then this double stop, and then the bass, and then the bass again by itself. So the bass is alone. Next, on the beat 2, measure 2, we have 2 pinches in a row. And then we're going to pinch here on the flat third and the bass, and then the root in the bass, the fifth in the bass. Right? So that looks tricky when you just see it, but if you break it down, that measure is just a pinch, an and, a bass note, and, pinch, slide, and. So you can isolate something like just that 4th beat, right? And just make sure that you can play and keep it clean like I did not just now. Let's just go step by step. Let's make sure you can do that. Pinch, and then play bass, open D, really slowly and really methodically. That gets repeated. Now this is a little tricky. It's the same rhythm, and when you play this measure slowly, it's going to sound terrible because it's kind of dissonant. Those notes don't really go together, but the melody is leading into the next chord. And it's going to sound great when you get there. When you play a tempo, you don't even notice it. But when you slow it down and you're practicing, it sounds really weird. But it's the same coordination here as it was over here. So it's just, if we take this measure here, measure 4, we have pinch, pinch, and bass, open G, pinch, the flat third of G, and slide up and get this next note. So it's, so that whole measure is, and now we're into the G, which is a little more tricky to coordinate because you have to play this shape, which is kind of an unfamiliar shape if you haven't played much in drop D. So it's kind of a stretch like this way across the fingerboard. Here's the root, the third, and the root. But you can sort of slowly put it together. This finger should already be there, right, from going. So you're there, bring in the bass, hold down the middle finger, and use that as the opportunity to bring the index finger across to the high string. So. And now we're going to come back. Again, pinch, pinch, and then, and 4, and that was right here, right? And then we're back into familiar territory. And now here at the downbeat of the A chord, there's a pinch with the thumb. And then these are off the beat. This is a pinch. But look, there's a lot of the time you're only holding down 1 or 2 notes. So we only got 1 fretted note over here. Here's the bass coming in. 2 notes being played. Open third string. Just a pinch. It looks almost like a C chord. Go to the high string. And then open third string again. And here we've just got 2 notes being played. Here's the bass and here's the melody. And then here again, 2 notes to an open string, another triplet. So even though it feels and sounds complicated, there's only a little bit going on at a time. If you just move slowly, look at where the pinches are. Just a bass note and an open string, pinch, pinch, 1 more note, pinch with 2 notes below it to an open string, pinch, and then back to familiar territory. So that is, hold on. So that is the horizontal 3-step for the fundamental version. And so hopefully that will help you make your way through what's going on with the tune. So basically you want to take a look at the vamp if you're ready for that. Take a look at the fundamental, and if the fundamental, if you want to work through the fundamental step by step, take it through that that horizontal 3-step process. Just isolate the bass, isolate the melody, look at how to put it back together by paying attention to where the thumb is, how the fingers land over the fingers, where the pinches are, and then just break it down into 2-bar sections. Look at, where you're repeating stuff and where you're playing new stuff. There's only 6 bars really that you need to learn. And look at that turnaround in terms of just a blow by blow, beat by beat. How do I put together these assorted pinches to make it all work? So that's what I came here to talk about. Wanted to leave a little time to answer some questions, so we'll do about 10 minutes of that. I did get one question already on the forum from Bruce, which I'm going to talk about first. But if you've got other questions about this, about if you're new and have questions about just the mechanics of the membership, if you have questions about the horizontal 3-step, post them now in the chat while I'm talking about stuff, and I will do my best to answer them. Okay, so Bruce's question was about the chords that are going on in the embellished version, which are basically adding one more note into the voicing. Right, so we're taking this D shape and adding in the 6th of D, which is the note B right here on the 4th fret of the 3rd string. So that makes a D6 chord, and when you slide that down, it makes a more complete D9 chord with the 9th and the 5th and the flat 7. And of course, when we put the A in the bass, it sounds a little bit more of an A minor kind of thing. But so I've talked about these chords elsewhere, and so the question was just, where else can you find these up the neck? Because they make nice improvisation materials, and I'll talk about it a bit more next week. But the short answer is, if you want to take these up the neck, you just go and look for the next. This is coming out of a D triad that we've turned the 5th to the 6th. So if we go to the next D triad, it's up here on the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd string at the 7th fret. And this is the 5th of the chord, so we make that the 6th. So there's the next pair. There's D6 and there's D9. So instead of, we could have this. And then go up to the next D triad. Here's the root, the 3rd and the 5th. Turn the 5th into the 6th and slide it down. And so that gives us that's a very familiar blues sound. You can slide up, and you can even go over and get the root on top with your index finger. So that's those. That one's a little awkward to play, I find, but there it is. You can use it if you want. That one's very common. And then you can go to the next string set, right? And you could go, not that, right? You'd have this voicing here would translate to over here. Here's the 6th, root, and 3rd. And there's another kind of common move. So you go from the 3rd to the 5th and back. Like that. And then here, this sound is found over here on the top 3 strings. Again, you're probably familiar with this one from that D9 chord shape, but you can take, here's the root, 3rd, and 6th of D, and here's the flat 7, 9, and 5th. And finally, well, we can go, let's see, here's D, and here's the 5th. We raise that to the 6th. So we have D6, D9. We can connect all of these chromatically too, meaning by half step, every pair. Right, so in this same groove. Okay, so that's where those are. Okay, a couple more questions. Let me try to get to these in the last 5 minutes or so. I can see someone's already answering the question, but let me take a crack at it. From Tony, I'm still putting the finishing touches on Trouble in Mind, time not really being a factor. Should you complete a song in its entirety before moving on to the next? I don't have a real strong opinion about this. Or do I? The new songs come out because for some people, they really like to have a new song every month. So I try to address that and kind of keep it moving for people who like that. You'll notice, especially lately, a lot of people have been posting their video that they've made of a song 2 or 3 months after it came out. That seems really common. So I think a lot of members move on to the next song, but kind of keep working on a past song to get it to the point where they feel like they're done with it or they want to post it. I find that for me, I like to have things in various stages of development. So if I've got a song down, but now I'm working on arranging it or on improvising it, then taking on a new song, actually, this is kind of counterintuitive maybe, but I find that when you start a new song and you don't know it that well, because it's brand new, it makes you realize how much you've learned about the previous song, right? And how much, until you start, whatever song you're working on, you feel like, oh, there's still a ways to go. When you start a new song, it gives you a better appreciation of how far you've already come on the existing song, because you have been playing the existing song for a while and you're like, oh yeah, well, that's actually in better shape than I realized, because look how hard this new thing is. So getting new stuff going on is a way of continuing to move forward, and each song will help move your technique forward. Working on there's certain things you're always going to be working on when you're working on the material here. You're always going to be working on time. You're always going to be working on the coordination between your thumb and your fingers. You're always going to be working on improvising if you're at that point. So to me, the benefit to moving on is you don't get bogged down. There's nothing worse than feeling like you've been working on one song for 6 months and it's not getting anywhere. So if you keep starting a new song every month or even every other month, it gives you more cracks at getting something developed and getting something going. At a certain point, you do want to kind of sit back and go, okay, let me really figure out what would take this tune from 80% to finished, And then there's people who argue that a song's never finished. You're always just kind of working on getting it better and more under your fingers. But I think that, even if you only tackle the fundamental each month, just moving forward, it's a way of getting, each song is a little bit different rhythmically, a little bit different melodically. I try to put them in different keys, try to use slightly different grooves. And also, not every song is going to appeal to everybody. So some people will be like, yeah, I really didn't want to work on The Grinch, so I just skipped it. Or, I don't really, the alternating thumb songs are not really what I'm interested in, so I didn't do, Crow-Jane or whatever it is. So, you can basically make of the material what you want. The monthly thing is, if you want something to kind of keep chewing on and you want something new to move into, moving into something new will help you with what you've already been working on, is my feeling about it. But the monthly thing is there. The monthly structure is there if you want it. But I will say this till I'm blue in the face. You can use the material however you like. And if you want to just work on one tune for a few months and then pick up the next one, or go rummaging through the archive for something you like better than the current tune, that's completely cool. It's really up to you how you want to use the material. The structure is there because for a lot of people, structure is hard to come by when it comes to practicing and playing guitar. So the structure is there if you want to partake of it. The structure to me, the monthly structure, is the meta to, the reason there's a horizontal 3-step, the reason there's a there's a modular improvisation or 5 resolutions for the improvisation. The reason there's a 7-step arc is so that you start to develop these muscles of like, oh, once I learn the tune, these are the paces I put it through, right? And so the monthly structure is just one more version of that. It's like, oh, every month, if I want to develop my repertoire, build my repertoire, learn to improvise, these are the steps I go through. First, I learn the tune, then I start improvising on it, mixing and matching the licks I've learned. Then I build a 7-step arc for it, and then the next month I rinse and repeat. And so over time, if you just kind of like absorb that methodology, I mean, it's just one methodology. I'm not saying it's the be all end all. It's just the one that we have around here. It doesn't really matter which methodology you pick. It's more important just to have one that works for you. And so it's to give you something to step into so that you can take the agitating, like thinking too much, what should I work on next? Magpie, maybe this, maybe that. You can take that part of your brain and just go boink and just go, yeah, for now, I'm going to work through this. And this is the way I'm going to work through it. And every month I'm going to do this. And every week I'm going to do that. And I might miss a week or I might miss a month. But I have this structure I can kind of partake in if I want to. That's all there is to that. So that's a very long answer to a pretty short but very excellent question. Okay, well, I'll play the song out one more time. If you're watching on replay or something else occurs to you, post your questions. I'll see you in the forum. We'll have 2 more live sessions this month. Coming up in a week, we'll do improvisation, and the week after that, we'll do arranging. So stick around for those, and post your questions below or in the forum, and we'll keep the conversation going.
All right, thanks everyone for being here or for checking this out on replay. And special thanks to Ricky and Todd and Tim, all for checking out, doing the proofreading for me. I still missed a spot or two, but I couldn't have presented as good a PDF as I did without them. So thanks, guys. And thank you all for being here, and see you on the forum and in next week's live stream.